Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1998 film Biozombie, and I've talked about this one a few times in some videos. It's one that is near and dear to my heart. I love it. I saw it in the early 2000s and really enjoyed it. And this is the Vinegar Syndrome release that's an upgrade for me because I have the original DVD, and it looks, as you can see, phenomenal. And the actual cleaning up of the film itself also looks phenomenal. Also has some special features on here, interview with the director, Wilson Yip, as well as a video essay, which it's the first time I've seen a video essay from Vinegar Syndrome, and it's pretty cool. So let's get into Biozombie. Like I said, directed by Wilson Yip, who's also done Teaching Sucks, Bullets Over Summer, The White Dragon, Ip Man, when there's at least one other Ip Man film, A Chinese Ghost Story, and Paradox. Written by Yip as well as Matt Chow, who did Hero Beyond the Boundary of Time, A Deadly Way, Till Death Do Us Laugh, Love Amoeba Style, Bullets Over Summer, Three Extremes Part 2, and 12 Golden Ducks. And also involved in writing is Man Sing So, who also wrote Robotrix, First Shot, Once Upon a Time in China and America, and Headlines, just to name a few. So this was originally released as Hong Kong Zombie because this is the very first zombie film ever made in Hong Kong itself. The director in the interview that I watched stated that this was supposed to be an homage to Dawn of the Dead by George A. Romero, which, what a film to do an homage to. And I think that this is a great homage to it because it's I believe he called them arcade shops, is like that small mall that they have as a setting in this. That setting, speaks very mall-like in the U.S. setting, but apparently a lot of those locations have kind of shut down over time in Hong Kong, which is kind of happening with malls in the U.S. too. So, all right, let's get into the actual film itself. Woody and Crazy Bee are set up immediately as slacker idiot jerks. These are typically people who die very early in zombie films and, horror films in general, especially back in 1998. So it's very interesting to kind of take the stance that you're going to introduce these kind of unsavory characters and then change them slowly over time until you get them to a hero position and people just love them. People do feel bonded to main characters just naturally and they do root for them, but it helps out when they're kind of starting out not that great and they kind of go through this very gradual change, which I think they did a really good job of making feel kind of realistic in this film. It just makes you root for them even more towards the end of the film. Loy, the sushi guy, spelled L-O-I, his obsession with roles gets established very quickly, very effectively, which is obviously important for the film because it shows his primary drive, and not just him as a human, but him even after he becomes a zombie, which I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Then they also establish that Koi, K-U-I, is a jerk. He's kind of that gangster wannabe guy. He acts super tough, but then when stuff really goes down, he becomes a real wuss and just wants to run. And not only that, but he becomes even worse because he gets into this survival of the fittest mode where he's literally throwing other people out to get between him and the zombies just so he can survive. And he even struggles mightily with the reaction he finally has to try and save his wife, even though, it didn't go well for him. But he's the type of character you meet in these films and you definitely do not root for. You're like, hope he gets munched by a zombie or more. Rolls comes off as a very self-absorbed person and only interested in what she can get out of men like Loy as well as Woody. You see that immediately. She's taking the free sushi that Loy is giving her. She's not that grateful for it. Then she's trying to get Woody, who she knows is also interested in him, to come and buy goods from her, services from her at her store. And it's just like, man, not a great person. But you warm up on her and she kind of changes a little bit along with Woody, and especially when their romance ends up starting later on in the film. So you do warm up to her as well as you're warming up to Crazy Bee and Woody. The big balls scene with the cockroach in this film, typical 90s humor. It's very potty humor type thing. I still find it kind of funny. It's not as funny as when I initially saw it, but it's still amusing. I'll put it that way. It's still amusing. Woody and Crazy Bee really don't work a whole lot. They are just kind of a mall rat type person. Each of them are these mall rat dudes. And if you notice the dynamic between Woody and Crazy Bee, Woody's obviously the one who's kind of calling the shots. And he's kind of ordering Crazy Bee around, and he's just kind of a follower, which is very much parallel with Koi and Mrs. Koi, where she's more in a submissive position within their relationship. And I think that's part of the reason why it works and makes sense that Crazy Bee and Mrs. Koi kind of form a bit of a connection, and they take a bit of an interest in each other later on in the film. Shady government dealings that lead to a zombie outbreak. This plays off the long-running fear of government secret projects. This is something that pops up all the time in real life, where people are always theorizing conspiracy-wise that there's, these secret government operations to do this, that, and the other thing, when most likely no. But it's very rampant in film, and especially back during the time that this film came out. So it's just very, ripe for the picking, basically. The cop in this film is really stupid to believe that the guy Woody hit with his car is just drunk. That scene where they hit the guy who's just been who's about to be zombified, because they zombify him. They have him drink that soft drink. They're like, oh, maybe he needs some of this. And then he turns into a zombie, but later. But the fact that he's like laying in the road, they make a point of making it look like he's seeing the blood coming out of him. And the police officer's just kind of like, just move your car. And you're just like, he definitely would have known something's up, because who's drunk laying in the middle of the road bleeding? Just kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They give the guy the zombie juice, then shove him in the trunk of their boss's car. At this point, what could go wrong? We all know where we're headed as soon as that juice goes in his mouth. I mean, for the most part, as soon as he got hit with the car, we all know where this is going. That juice, the zombie juice is what I'm going to call it, gets out into the regular world. And we know. I like how Woody and Crazy Bee waste time playing House of the Dead, because that's very appropriate. That's the shooter game they were playing when they were working. And apparently their store, from what I gleaned from what the director was saying, was supposed to be kind of like a bootleg movie store, which you can kind of see that when the guy comes in and he's trying to return one, because it's like cutting off part of the head of one of the actors. I thought that was pretty funny, but very fitting that they're playing House of the Dead, because they're going to end up having to fight zombies at some point. As soon as Koi is mean to his wife. Sorry, autocorrect. As soon as Koi is mean to his wife, you just want zombies to munch him. I kind of already talked about this. Bears repeating. He's a terrible character. I mean, in films like this, you definitely need those characters, because they're the ones you root for to be the ones to die, because you kind of always have that in horror films. During the robbery scene, it looked like Crazy Bee was going to knife Rolls in the head, but the bucket that Woody threw over her head stops that. So I didn't know what was going on there, like what was the real intention. I think it was just supposed to be a comedic moment, because this is a zombie comedy. But it's not within the character of Crazy Bee, in my opinion, for him to like actually knife this girl in the head. So I didn't really like that was the case, because it seemed very out of character for him. Yes, he was a follower, but he also wasn't super mean-spirited. And even when he was kind of mimicking the attitude that Woody was having, Woody Invincible, he was doing it in a more demure way. And you could tell that like it wasn't something he was passionate about being that way, I do like the bucket of blood that comes flying out from under the car when that security guard gets killed under the car. He gets pulled under by the initial zombie, and then you don't see him, like the car's kind of rocking, and then it's just like all this blood just flies out from the bottom. Love that. I think it's a very effective, very cool scene. That is literally the perfect example of when a bucket of blood will do in a horror film. The zombie goes for his phone. I was wondering if this was kind of a statement about work culture in China, maybe subconsciously, because I did watch the interview with the director, and he said that there wasn't any political anything that he was trying to throw into the film, really. He was just trying to, make an homage to Dawn of the Dead, but people will subconsciously kind of write these things in there. So it seemed to me that it may have been a little bit of a point of, guy is dead, but he's going for his phone, which is what ties him to work, basically. And it then becomes very real to me that zombies in this sense, in this film, as soon as they are not people anymore and they become zombies, kind of what their main driving factor in their life ends up becoming what they're focused on so much as when they're a zombie. Like, that's the one human part left of them, other than consuming. So, and doesn't it make sense to have zombies at a mall because it's all about consuming? Yeah, just saying. You feel real bad for Loy, and then he gets turned into a zombie as well. Feel really bad for him, especially when the date between Rolls and Woody is going on, because there he is, he's serving them food, and he's watching the woman that he has so much love for with another guy, especially a guy who he doesn't have a whole lot of respect for. So you feel real bad for him, and then he gets turned into a zombie, and it's just like, like, he is the most sympathetic character in this film, in my opinion. And then it's Crazy B after that. Loy's cock blocking of Woody is a pretty funny scene. I did think that was a good time. When he breaks in on him in the bathroom and he literally says, "What are you cock blocking me?" Because he saw the zombie. He was attacked by the zombie. And yeah, it was just a funny exchange. I really like that particular scene. It's one of my favorites. It's an interesting take on zombies that they see in black and white. I didn't really see that coming, but it was very interesting because whenever they have those kind of like zombie POV shots, it's in black and white, which is an interesting idea. I guess it's because they're now dead that like all the color has been leached from their life in a sense. So I do like that kind of differentiation. It doesn't look great, especially not, over time, but, The faux split screen. That shot is very clever. The first time I ever saw this film, it straight up blew my mind. It was talked about in the special feature by the director, Wilson Yip. He did say that he specifically chose that one arcade store arcade mall thing because of that one shot that he could get, because he found that area. That was an idea he had going into shooting the film, and it's really cool because you legitimately do think that it is just a split screen because of the way he kind of like has the one and then he drops in the other one next to it. You don't think that they're actually kind of like standing right there back to back. Plus, it's a little funny at the same time, so I like that aspect of it. The interrogation scene in the control room I also thought was pretty funny. I especially liked Woody's reaction to when he found the joint in his wallet. I thought that was pretty funny, and he was like, "Oh, what? Huh?" It's like he didn't even know what that was, and he's like, "I don't even do drugs. Drugs are bad." Just, there's a lot of good comedy in this, and that speaks to how the dialogue is written. Now, for me, I'm reading subtitles, so from a subtitles perspective, they did a good job doing that. I don't know how the original language, I think it's Cantonese. I don't know how that translates, but it was good to me. I enjoyed it. Things don't feel too dangerous in this film until the zombie comes into the control room and kills the cops and security guard. Once that happens, it's a very small space. The main characters of the film are in a lot of danger, and it really feels like the attack has really begun. Because prior to that, it's not a whole lot of action. There's like a person here or there, and you feel like there's plenty of space for people to like actually get out of there. But at that point, to the next level. Being locked in the mall. That also takes the danger level up. Huge danger level increase on that one. When those steel shutters come down, and at that point you're just like, they're screwed. Now, little do you know at that point that they're not that much better off out in the real world because, it's an outbreak kind of everywhere. Gotta love Crazy B's zany running. If you didn't notice it and you're going to watch the film again, make note of when he runs in this film. He's got this kind of like crazy B run that's just, it's funny. It's pretty funny to me. Pretty tense moment when the handcuff key falls into the cop's mouth. the dead cop who is going to turn into a zombie at any moment. It falls in, then Crazy Bee uses the knife to try and get it out. That was really well shot, kept some really good tension, made you pretty scared, and they really subdued the score at that point. And that's another thing, the score in this, or the soundtrack in this, is pretty good. Even though they're slackers, Woody and Crazy Bee step up and act as heroes when the zombie mayhem gets real. You know who doesn't, though? Coy. That guy. The worst. But it's all part of the character progression, which I said before is written very well. It develops at a more believable pace, so I like the way they pulled that off for those characters. When things get real, you see what a coward Coy actually is, even though he acts tough. Yeah, not a whole lot more to say about that because I kind of already covered it. I do like how Zombie Loy feeds the other zombies finger sushi rolls. Not only does he do that, but when they then eat them, he gives one to Rolls in the hope that Rolls will play along, actually eat it, and then those zombies will kind of be like, oh yeah, a fellow zombie, I'm good. But she gets grossed out about it, then the alarms in the zombies' brains go off, and they're trying to attack. Now, I like the fact that Loy throughout this film is trying to protect that which he covets most, and that's further going to my point of when people die in this film and become a zombie, they are mainly driven by the thing that was most important to them in their normal life. For the original zombie guy, it was work. For Loy, it is his love. It is protecting Rolls and making sure she's okay. And he sees that through as far as he can. When the ring falls out of Woody's pocket, it shows how people change under times of duress. Because Woody actually feels bad about it at that point and what he did robbing from Rolls. And Rolls is actually starting to be forgiving at that point. And neither of them would actually act that way or feel that way in a normal situation. Like, that's not who those characters are prior to them having to deal with the zombie outbreak. So I thought that was a very interesting moment. It's very pivotal in that sense. You already don't like Coy, and then he pushes Jelly out of the elevator to stop a zombie. Like I said before, he's literally throwing other people into harm's way. This is the type of person that you don't ever want to be in a crisis situation with, because he is the type of person who would intentionally trample someone in order to just get to safety for himself. No regard for humanity. Love the video game poses that they have in this with the information about the survivors as they're about to do battle with the zombies. I thought that was a funny, cool thing. They then bring up later when, like Woody picks up a gun and it says reload. And then there's like no key. It had like that icon coming up. So they lean into the video game thing. It's a little weird because it just comes in like just then and then it's gone. But it works fine just because it is... You understand, like, this is a zombie comedy film, so it's fine to just, like, throw that in for a little bit and then keep going, so. As soon as Crazy Bee looks pale, your stomach drops in this film. At least mine did, because you really did start to like this character. I kind of liked him from the get-go because he was the lesser of the two evils between he and Woody, but he becomes even more likable as time goes on. Then everything with him dying is when the heart of the film really comes out too. As if it wasn't enough for you to feel bad that he's about to die, he goes on this diatribe about dying and about wanting to have a picture for his gravestone and all that stuff, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And then that moment is just like snapped away from you when the zombie like grabs him and like pulls him through the window in that control room. And then it just like snaps you right back into the action of the film. So it kind of like leaves you to languish in this terrible moment, but then it snaps you out of it kind of quickly, which is kind of a nice thing for the director to do for you, in a sense. It is awesome that Zombie Loy lifts the parking garage shutter and pushes the car so Woody and Rolls can escape. Again, seeing through what he was most obsessed with or driven by in his human life, which is the protection of Rolls and doing everything he can for Rolls. Getting out and then finding it's no better elsewhere in the city is such a gut punch to for this film. Because you have that little victory you're feeling where you're like, okay, we lost a lot of people, but at least Rolls and Woody made it. They get to the gas station, he hears the report about what's going on, and then you're just like, oh crap. Well, they're in a terrible situation. At least they have more space at this point, because they can put more distance between them and zombies because it's a larger world now. Then he turns around after they said that don't drink any soft drinks, and he sees that the zombie juice soft drink is being consumed by Rolls, and it becomes even more bleak. It's just another gut punch on top of it, and this is where the impact of the film really does come in. It is a profound moment when Woody drinks that zombie juice because he realizes everyone he cares about at this point is going to be gone. He realizes he's in a terrible situation. He already went through so much. He lost so many people. He has Rolls left. And in that moment that he sees her drink the zombie juice, he knows that he's not going to have her anymore. So what is he going to do? He's going to go on by himself? And the director actually said in the interview that moment he wanted it to be a quality of life over quantity of life. And it definitely comes off that way. So I think he did a really good job with that. And I'm glad that's the end of it. Not much dialogue actually matters a whole lot in this film. It is primarily used for comedic purposes, but that's totally fine because it's a zombie comedy, so, you get it. There's very fun and engaging camera work in this movie. That's one of the things I like about it so much. There's some really inspired shots, and a lot of the times the camera angle is kind of like a little bit askew, just to kind of make you have this feeling that things just are off. Things are messed up. But it's also like playful. It's just like fun for the audience because it's kind of like the director is playing a bit with you. Also, the camera is kind of like always moving in this film, which helps keep the film more engaging. The other thing about this film is I think the pacing is actually really good. I don't think there are any moments where I was like, oh, this is starting to drag too much. Great pacing. It's like an hour and 32 minutes or 34 minutes, I think, something like that. They did a good job with it. Yeah, and that's all I have to say about Biozombie. I'm a fan, obviously. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm giving this a very good 4-star rating. I think it deserves that rating, but I would love to hear your thoughts on Biozombie. If you've seen it, go ahead and put it in the comments, and just give me like a sentence or two letting me know why you do or don't like it, or if you're in between on it. But do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that. Also hit the notification bell button. Then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 3 a week. Regardless, thank you so much for checking out this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.